I want to start with Manchester United because he'd won 9 games in a row. They came within a Michael Olise free kick last night of making it 10 wins in a row. How'd they look?
All right. I think
you're not one of those people who says, "Oh, look, they couldn't see out the game. They couldn't close it out."
No,
okay,
there's
good.
context behind every single game. They should have had a stonewall penalty to make it 2-0. That's the game finished. Then they get done by a worldy free kick in the last seconds of the game. I'm not one of these that look too deep into a match without looking at the context and think, "Oh, they've bottled it. They should have won 3 points. That's took them out the title race." It's a good point. Away from home, should have been 3. They'll move on to the next one.
They were also playing with somebody up front who had been at the club for all of 48 hours in Weghorst. And that's got to affect you as well because Weghorst's movement up front, because he's a different player and is going to necessarily be different from that of Martial or Rashford or whoever plays up front before.
Well, if you think of Martial on one side and Anthony on the other, playing with a brand new signing who's different, all of a sudden they've got a temper or they've got to change the way they play. They've got to try and learn very quickly what his strengths and weaknesses are. So Rashford would have been guessing, is he a good link man? Do I try and get to the byline and put crosses in for him because of his height? So it changes the dynamics of the game. But I thought Man U played quite well.
I want to get into what United have been doing right. And I think we need to show Erik ten Hag some love.
Definitely.
But I also kind of wanted to underscore how psychologically the impact that this can have, in the sense that, but for this game last night, 2 things happened which could have a huge impact, right? Yeah. So the Olise free kick means 2 points dropped that they would have otherwise had. Yeah. The Casemiro yellow, which is going to be suspended for the game.
Which was like the commentators were assuming last night was like the worst thing that's ever happened in football. They were like, "Oh no!"
Okay, but it does change the narrative that if you're Ten Hag, you can't go into training this morning and tell them, guys, think of the start of the season. Yeah. And now think of the fact that come Sunday night, we can be within 2 points, I think it is, of the top of the table. Yeah. Now, they won't be within 2 points of the top of the table. No. And without Casemiro, you might say they're not going to be favorites. Well, they wouldn't have been favorites probably anyway against Arsenal, but their chances of beating Arsenal are a lot less. So
it's a big blow.
As coaches, you always have to adjust to the situation.
You've got to try and find the positive, and he's already done that last night, didn't he? He said we beat them without Casemiro at the start of the season. We can do it again. So you've got to try and find the positives. You're not going to say, "Oh my God, we've not got Casemiro. We've only got Fred. We've got no chance." You're going to try and spin the positives. And you're going to have to try and tweak something. You might go an extra midfield play. Your tactics might be a little bit different. It's a massive blow when you look at the 2 players that would have been coming up against each other in Casemiro and Thomas Partey. That was one I think everyone was looking for. Who's going to come out on top there? So his tactics are going to have to be different. So interested to see what personnel he goes with.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like obviously Fred, possibly McTominay, will be the person deputized to fill Casemiro's big boots. The other big item of news in this week is Jim Ratcliffe, the billionaire who owns Nice, lives in the south of France. Yeah. He came out and he went very public and, he said he wants to buy Manchester United. They're talking, I think...
5 billion, something like that?
In excess of 5 billion. Here's my take about this guy. Yeah. And look, I'm not going to... Some people have had issues. He tried to buy Chelsea, but then he's a lifelong United fan. But then he lived in London, so he had a season ticket. I don't really care about that. I mean, he was a rich guy wants to buy a club. Yeah, not named Glazer. Yeah. That's a positive 100%. If you're a United fan, right?
100%.
What I'm not clear on is the first time with Chelsea. If you remember, the Reign said, "Okay, we have a whole process. Blah blah blah. Submit your bids by this date. Confidential. Blah blah blah." Yeah. He didn't do it at all. He just comes out with this communique saying like, "Oh yes, I want to buy the club. We don't want it to fall into foreign hands or whatever." And now here he goes public, and the Glazers are so publicity shy. Why do that? I would think you could, since I assume all billionaires know each other, just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Joel, let's get together. Let's talk. This is what I'm going to value the club at." Now, at some point later on, obviously, you want to get pressure on the Glazers or whatever. That's a negotiating
tactic. So he showed his hand too early. Is that what you're saying?
I just don't see the point of announcing it in this way, unless he's already has talks. Unless the Glazers say like, "Oh, bidding starts at 7, go away," and he says, "All right, well then I'm going to make it public that I want to buy, so that I can turn the screws on the Glazers a little bit."
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.